I'll just get my arm just to check.
I think we'll just have to cope with what we've got.
I'm going to charge you a tenth of the fee for
Yeah. Your arm making a difference. Okay, so if we start with the feet hip width apart, and just try and get a nice equal feel through all parts of those feet. So just feel as if your feet are sinking down into that mat. And then we'll just start with a warm up for the neck. So without moving your shoulders, just going to gently take the head from side to side. It's nice and slowly, making sure those shoulders aren't following. Think about keeping the shoulder blades dropped nicely down the back. And then back into the centre, and then just gently rock the head forward, keep the shoulders where they are, and just take a few breaths. And then we'll bring that head back into the centre. Okay, and then we just take the shoulders round, big circles. Just think about opening up that chest as you're taking the shoulders back. And again, think about that breath flow. So you can take an inhale as you take the shoulders back. So if you really feel as if that chest's opening. And then have a change of direction, so the shoulders coming forward. Keep the arms nice and heavy. Good. And then back into your starting position with those shoulders. Okay, and then we just take the hands onto the hips. Keep the knees nice and soft, and we'll just take those hips round in some nice circles. So try and keep the shoulders fairly square and level, so you're not kind of taking the shoulders in a bigger movement. Good. Okay, and have a change of direction. So really think about going all the way around that circle shape. One more in this direction. And then back into the centre. Okay, and then we're just going to have a stretch off the sides of the body. So you're going to just drop one hand gently down the side of the body, and then take hand up without pushing your hip out. We're just going to stretch over. So think about that arm just hanging down nice and heavy, and then coming back up, and then again having a swap. So making sure that hip, so what we don't want to do is that, you don't want to be pushing your hip out, you want to be stretching. Good. And again over to the other side. Okay, and once more. So think about stretching up and over. Good. And back into the centre. Okay, and then we'll just give the ankles and the knees a little bit of a warm up. So just come into some heel raises. As you're taking the heels down, try and make sure that you're placing the whole foot down. I've got that horrible memory foam mat. I hate this mat. Good. And then place both feet down. Okay, so we'll come into your roll downs now. So keeping the knees nice and soft, so you're not pushing the knees or the bum out behind you. You're going to inhale to prepare. As you exhale, you're just going to tuck the chin and just gently start to just unstack that spine, one vertebra at a time. So you're just going to start to just imagine you peeling the spine, one vertebra at a time, off the top of each little bone, just in your own time. As you get to the bottom, you can give those arms a circle, just loosen those shoulders off. And then as you're coming back up, you're going to just restack the spine one vertebra at a time. So you're thinking about that sequence of movement of the spine rather than how far down you can get. And then we're going to do 2 more. Again, coming up into that upright position, make sure the shoulders are relaxed. Inhale, as you exhale, tuck the chin, and then just continue to just peel each little vertebrae off the top of the one below. So remember, keep the knees nice and soft so you're not hyperextending those knees and pushing them out behind you. And again, when you get to the bottom, give those arms a nice circle, just a little swing, anything just to get those shoulders loosened up. And then, in your own time, you're going to just reset that spine, one vertebra at a time, until you're coming into that upright position. And then we'll do one more to finish off. So same thing, really focusing on that sequence of movement through that spine, no pushing out with those knees or the back of the knee. Nice and heavy with those arms. So almost think about the arms kind of weighing you down, so you've got no tension held through those shoulders, and it almost feels like it's opening up your upper back and your shoulders. So you're just thinking about everything moving rather than how far down you can get. Good. Okay. So we'll come down onto the mat now. We'll just come down onto our backs, and if you just grab your ball and just pop it in between those knees. So think about the feet being in line with the hips, so you're not bringing the feet in together and having the knees around the ball. You almost want to just think about the hips, knees and feet being in a little bit of a straight line. Obviously, if your ball's a little bit more inflated, it's going to push the knees out a little bit. So what I want you to do is just squeeze the ball between those knees. If you haven't got access to a ball at home, don't worry, because you can do all of these exercises without a ball. Okay, and then we're just going to start just finding that neutral position through the pelvis and the back. So keeping that little squeeze on the ball, you're just going to gently roll the pelvis between those 2 directions. So you're feeling as if you're just gently bringing the hips, so they're pointing up towards the head, and then gently tilting the hips down towards the feet. So don't put any weight through those feet as you're pushing, so it just wants to come little movement from the lower back. So it's just like a little roll of that pelvis. In your feet slightly in a little bit more. Yeah, that's it. Good. So you just feel as if you're mobilising that back. So you feel a little bit of a arch in the back as you tilt the hips down towards the feet, and then you feel the back pushing down into the mat as you tilt the hips up towards the head. And then we'll just make that movement a little smaller and smaller each time. And then you're just going to rest just somewhere in the centre. So thinking about the hips pointing up towards the ceiling, but not pushing yourself into an unnatural position. You want to just be in a nice neutral position for yourself. And then you're going to keep the squeeze on the ball. So we're just starting to get those pelvic stabilising muscles activated. We're going to come into a sit-up. So take your hands behind your head and try and keep the elbows nice and wide, so you're not bringing the elbows together, and nice and light with the fingers. So remember to keep that squeeze on the ball, and you're going to inhale to prepare. As you exhale, you're going to just think about just lifting just kind of to the bottom of the shoulder blades, and then slowly lowering. Don't let go of that squeeze on the ball. So you almost feel as if you're just peeling one vertebra at a time off that mat. So thinking about the abdominal muscles, feeling as if they're shortening when they're bringing you up into that sit-up position. So they're contracting as you're coming up into your sit-up, and then as you're lowering, you're thinking about them lengthening again. Don't lose that squeeze on the ball. So you want to keep the same amount of squeeze on that ball as you're coming up and as you're going down. So try not to lose the connection as you're lowering back down again. So really take the attention onto those abdominal muscles. Almost feel like they're just gently drawing back towards that mat a little, and keep that squeeze. Good, I'm going to do 2 more of those. Remember, keep those hands nice and light behind the head. So you don't want to feel as if you're pulling yourself up with your hands. You want to feel as if they're just gently supporting the neck. Good. Just have a rest for a second or two. And then we're going to take the arms back down by your sides. Just walk the fingers down towards the feet a little bit so the shoulders are nice and secure. The shoulders don't want to be coming up. And then you're going to inhale. As you exhale, you're going to bring the ball and your knees up into your tabletop position. So thinking about having a nice right angle between your leg and your body. And then just going to extend one leg at a time from the knee, and then bring it back into that bent position. So for this one, I want you to think about control. So the ball stays still, so you're not bringing the leg up and down. It's literally just that extension from the knee. Good. So almost imagine that you've got a little bolt through your knees, through the ball, and you can't bring your knee backwards and forwards. So it's just an extension. And again, think about connecting through those abdominal muscles, so drawing back towards that spine. If you want to increase the difficulty a little bit, you can squeeze the ball, but then you're going to have to work harder to control it. So we don't want any movement of that ball. Remember, you've got that bolt through the legs, through the ball. So drawing back the tummy button. Make sure you're breathing. Good. Okay, we're going to do one more on each leg. So keep the same speed. And then bring those legs down. Bring the knees up towards the chest. Just give that back a little bit of a roll around. Good. Okay, so again, I'm going to just keep that ball squeezed. You've got a little bit of pressure going on through those knees. So you're feeling it on the inner thigh, and you'll just get those glute muscles activated. We're going to come up into your shoulder bridge. So what I want you to do is make sure that those feet are hip width apart, that they're not coming too wide or too close together. I'll come and have a look in a second. Make sure the shoulders are nicely down towards that, towards the waistband. And we're going to inhale to prepare. As you exhale, you're going to tilt those hips up towards the head, and then you're going to lift that spine one vertebra at a time up off the mat. And then we're going to give 3 squeezes on the ball, and then you're going to come back down again, keeping that squeeze as you're coming back down, so you're really activating those inner thighs. And then again, squeeze, roll the pelvis, bringing the back completely away, one vertebra at a time. Then you've got those 3 squeezes. Keep a little squeeze as you're coming back down. So you want to feel as if somebody's got 2 pieces of string, one on each hip, and then lifting those hips up towards that ceiling. And use the ball as a little bit of a marker when you get up into your shoulder bridge, whether you've got either hip dropping. If you feel like your knees coming down the ball, that might indicate that your hip is coming a little bit lower on one side. And just keep an eye on those feet, make sure you've got a nice feel through the whole foot so you're not tipping onto the outside or the inside. Nice and relaxed through those shoulders. Good. Remember, keep those glute muscles switched on, and it's quite a good way to use the ball for your shoulder bridge. So, because you're taking the attention a little bit onto the inner thigh, it tends to stop your hamstrings getting too crampy. Good. We'll do one more after this one. Good. Really make a mental note of where your knees are on that ball. Good. Okay, have a breather a second. You okay, Liz?
Yeah.
Good. So we're going to do one more leg heavy exercise, and then we're going to move on to a little bit of a balance challenge. So have a breathe for a second, and I'll just demonstrate the next one for you. Okay, so again, we're going to be working with the ball between the knees. We're going to be thinking about drawing back a little bit with the tummy button just to start to switch on the centre a little bit, so we're not doming those abs up towards the ceiling. And then we're going to think about the hips and the feet being a nice line. You're going to inhale. As you exhale, you're going to lift ball and extend both legs. Then you come back into that position and down again. So as you bring the legs down, really make sure you're not popping out of that neutral position. So you've got that tummy button drawing back. So again, I'll just repeat. You're going to inhale, exhale into your tabletop position. Extending both legs back into your tabletop and back down. So really focus on the feeling that you get through the abdominal muscles with this one, especially as you're taking the legs back down. So So in your own time. So really drawing back the tummy button. So again, the ball's going to stay still while you extend the legs. So what we don't want to do, when you bring your legs back down, don't cheat by bending the knee. Okay, so you're going to keep that right angle, you're going to keep that angle behind the knee, and you're going to come down like that. So we're not coming down by bringing the feet closer to the body, you're coming down by keeping that angle exactly the same in the knee. So really focus on the angle of the knee. So you should feel it quite deep in those abdominal muscles. So you've almost got to imagine you've got another ball behind your knees. So that's it. So don't bend your knees. That's better. Is that harder?
Yeah.
Good. That's it. Good. Much better. So the hardest part of this one should be when you're taking your legs back down. So keep the angle the same. So almost imagine that you've got nothing from the knee below. So the knee stays in the same angle. Good. And then keep the same angle. Breathe. Good, well done. Okay, we're going to do 2 more. So keep that tummy button drawn back, nice and soft through the shoulders, make sure you breathe. So draw back with the tummy button and control. Good. And last one. Good. Control. Don't bend the knees too much. Good. Okay, and have a breather. So you're all doing it right then, because I can see you're all holding your arms. Oh, it's hot over here, the heater's on again. Okay, let's just give the back a stretch. We are going to do a couple more on our backs, but if you come over into your cat position, just gently dropping the head down, bring that back up towards the ceiling, and then gently dropping into the opposite position. So as you're doing this, think about your hips opening and closing. And as you're dropping the back down, making sure you're not pushing your head back too far, so you're not compressing the vertebrae at the top of the neck. Good. So really think about open and close of those hips as you do this. Good. So the hips stay nicely aligned over those knees. Okay, and then just have a little push back into your child's pose. So just push back up, your bum down onto your feet, and just reach the hands away. Good. Okay, so anyone at home that hasn't got a ball, don't worry, you can do these exercises without the ball. So we're going to bring the ball underneath your pelvis. So what you don't want to feel is that the ball's so low that your back is dropping down onto the mat, and you don't want it so high up that it's pushing into the small of your back. I'll come around and have a check. So it should fit quite nicely, just comfortably onto your pelvis. So we're going to do a little bit of a balance challenge with your ball now. So one at a time, you're going to bring both legs up into that tabletop position. So the ball, you'll feel all the little wobbles on the ball. So just to start with, get yourself nice and centred. Good. Okay, and we're going to do a similar thing with the legs, but we're going to do it with one leg at a time. So you're just going to bring one leg at a time down without closing up that angle of the knee. So no cheating and just bending the knee to bring it down. The knee angle stays exactly the same. So again, you need to be drawing back with that tummy button. You can put your hands, kind of just hook them gently inside your hips, and you'll feel those abdominal muscles kicking in as you take your legs down. So kind of slide them just inside your hip bones. You can keep your elbows on the floor if you want. Everyone feeling that?
Yes.
So you should just feel, you should feel those muscles just drawing up into the fingers. Good. No cheating by closing up the knee angle. Okay, one more on each leg, keep breathing. Try and keep that ball as still as possible. Good. And did you like that?
Scott's going to love us all pumping and banging on this video.
Okay. So we're going to take it a little bit more difficulty now for your balance. So if you want to just bring your knees up towards the chest, give your hip flexors a bit of a rest before we go on to the next one, you can. Your back will feel so nice when you get off this ball. You know what that feels. Oh, it feels so nice. Like a massage. Okay. So you're going to take your legs up into your tabletop position, and you're going to take your arms up into. Okay. If you really struggle with balance, you can keep one arm down. So to start with, we're just going to find that balance. Even if you just keep your fingertips down and then take fingertips off. So you're just finding that balance. So it's quite a static exercise. But so you want to minimise that tiny little wobbles you get. So really drawing back with the tummy button. If you take one arm up, so just play around with your balance. Breathe and see if you can get it so you can get both arms, both legs up. Draw back with the tummy. Breathe, relax. Yay! There you go. Harder than it looks.
Oh.
So really start to use that core to hold you nice and steady. That's it. Good. And if you can, you're going to extend those legs out. Arms up. Even if you just have that set, have the arms slightly off. Draw back with the tummy button. Then back in with the knees. Hook those knees up to the chest. That is ones that look hard. Or harder than they look. Okay, right, take your ball out from underneath and then lie down, and you should feel a lot closer down to that mat now. You almost feel like you're hanging in a hammock. Okay, and just close your eyes, just take some breaths. walks for ages.
Oh,
Lovely.
lovely.
Forgot how much fun they were. No?
Yeah, I like the little balls.
Yeah, I like little balls. You can do quite a lot with them. Okay. Right, I'm going to move on to our side now. I'm going to take the ball in between your feet. Okay, so think about your sideline position. So think about the hips being nicely aligned over each other. And you're going to bring your knees into a bent position, so the ball's coming up towards your bum. And then we're going to take top arm up towards the ceiling. And we're going to make sure that we're not rolling backwards or forwards, so I will come around and check. If you feel like you are rolling backwards and forwards, you can put your hand down. And then we're going to come into your clam, so you're going to open and close that knee. So again, it's keeping control of your body so that ball doesn't roll around. So if you start to roll back through your hip, you'll find that your foot will go back on the ball. So it's quite a good one to just check your alignment. So if you start to roll back through your pelvis, you'll find it very hard to keep control of that ball. Good. Try and keep your foot nice and light on the ball, so you don't use the ball to support your foot, or just using it just to make it a little bit more tricky for you. Good. Okay, we'll do two more. So keep the ball still if we can. Good. Okay. Keep the ball between your feet, and you're going to take your feet into a straight position. So if you want to readjust your ball so it feels a bit more secure, then feel free. So for this one, have your hand down in front of you to start with. Think about that top leg being nice and long so the hip isn't coming up towards the ribs. And then going to come into your double leg lift. So thinking about using your underneath leg, you're going to lift the ball up and lower it. Good. So inhale, exhale, lift. So it's a nice, slow, fluid movement. Good. Good. So think about your top leg coming towards me. That's nice and long. So just gently roll your pelvis forward a little bit. That's it. So you almost put your weight on down on your arm. That's it. Perfect. Good. That's it. Much better. Good, that's a really nice position from everyone. Good. Imagine I'm pulling your top foot towards me. Good. Okay, we're going to do 2 more of those. And rest. Good. That was good from everyone. That was far too easy. I think some more complicated ones. Okay, right. We'll swap onto the other side. Sorry, it's been a bit of a short class tonight with the technical hinges. And we'll just give the back a little stretch on the way over. Mind you, as it's on a record, and you can practice it at home again if you want.
It's probably got my head in it as well.
I think it's only got half my body in it. Apologies everyone who's
Kind of
watching.
squished up this way.
It was a bit of an emergency. Okay, so pop over onto your other side. And again, get the ball between your feet. So make sure it's nice and comfortable and it feels like you can keep it there quite easily. So you might find one side you find it really easy to keep the ball in the correct position, and one side you find it much more difficult. So bring that ball up towards those the bum. Your bottom foot stays on the floor, and then you're going to come into your clamp. So you're going to take the arm up. So really thinking about the movement coming from that hip, so the hip's doing the work. So that foot stays nice and light. What you don't want to be doing is kind of squashing that ball between the feet. So you want the hip doing the work, you don't want that ball taking the weight of your leg. So think about that breath flow. Good. Sit back nice and still with that ball. Think about those hips staying neatly stacked over each other. Don't want your top hip to feel as if it's drawing up towards that rib. You want to keep the hips nicely lined over the top of each other. Good. Think about that breathing. For the last few, think about that foot staying really light. Almost like you're just suspending that top foot in the air. Good. We're going to do 2 more. Good. And have a quick breather. Okay, nearly there, good. So again, make sure that your ball is comfortable. So you can have it between your ankles if it's more comfortable, if it's easier for you to keep in place. Oh, I'm getting attacked by a big ball a bit. Stay. And have a check on your position, so make sure you're not rolling back through that pelvis or rolling forward. So if you start off with your hand in front of you, just to enable you to keep your balance a little bit better. And then going to inhale, exhale, and lift that ball. So remember, think about your underneath leg doing the work. Good. Relax the top of the body, so make sure as you're lifting that your head and shoulders don't lift. Good. Really take that attention tension onto that underneath leg. Use that breathing, so you want to be exhaling as if you're exhaling as you lift. Good. We're going to do 3 more of those, nice and slowly. Good, relax the upper body, relax that top shoulder. When you've done your last one, you can let go of the board. Right then, ladies, that looked nice. Okay. Right then, pop back over onto your backs and we'll just finish off with some stretches. So we've done quite a lot of work on your hip flexors at the front of the hips. So if you take your one leg stretched out, don't make sure the leg doesn't rotate outwards. So think about a nice straight line from the hip down through to the toes. And then you're going to bring the other leg up towards the body, really stretching away with that long leg. You point the toe and make that leg as long as possible. So you're just stretching off the front of that hip. And just breathing through that stretch. And then just bring the toe up into flex position. So your toes coming up towards the body on that long leg. Straight leg, should I say. Good. And we'll have a little swap. So bring the opposite leg up towards the chest. Straighten the other leg. Remember, make sure that you're not rotating the leg out. And then bring that leg up and really stretching away with your straight leg. Good, just breathing through that stretch. And then bring that leg, that toe up into flex position so it's coming up towards the body. So just stretching off the back of that leg. Good, and relax. And then we'll just bring your knees just up into your bent position. Bring the knees together now. Take your arms out into your T shape and you're going to take the head over to one side and you're going to drop those knees right over to the other side. And just hold. You've got a nice twist through the centre of that body. Just allow everything just to relax. So you don't want to force it, just think about those knees being really heavy. You should feel a nice stretch on the outside of that hip. And then breathe and take the knees over to the other side and then roll the head into the opposite direction. And again, no forcing, just allow those knees to feel as if they're really heavy, so the legs feel heavy. You feel a nice stretch down through the outside of that hip. And just breathe in, just concentrating on where that stretch is happening. Try and switch off everything else. Good. Draw those knees back over into the centre. And then just gently roll over onto our fronts again, into your hands and knees, or onto your hands and knees, just send it onto the knees. Just give that back. Little stretch again, so remember thinking about opening, closing the hips to create this movement. And then bring it back into your neutral position, so you're in the middle of those two positions. Bring those toes underneath the body, so just putting the toes under, and then you're going to push that bum up towards the ceiling. Okay, and then just slowly walking the hands towards the body. And then we just stay there for a couple of seconds, just give the back of those legs a stretch, so just allow the arms to hang nice and heavy. You can just take the weight very slightly forward to increase that stretch if you want to. And then one vertebra at a time, just going to reset that spine and come back into your standing position. Good.